This is the perfect Forbidden List for September 2023. And when I mean perfect, I mean perfect. This Forbidden List is like your younger sibling. It can't do no wrong to your parents. Seriously though, they get away with everything. I actually polled over 1,000 Yu-Gi-Oh players, and these are some cards that people collectively want on or off the Forbidden List. I'm gonna pick 3 cards to ban, 3 cards to limit, 3 cards to semi-limit, and 3 cards to unlimit. Of course, I'm gonna be giving you reasons why, and I want you to post down below in the comment section if these are just hits and what cards would you want on the Forbidden List or off. Currently, there are some cards in the game that players feel are completely unfair, and fortunately enough, this perfect Forbidden List is aimed to do that. And my guy, let's be ever so clear, this is not a prediction Forbidden List. This is an attempt to actually balance the Yu-Gi-Oh format, something Konami can't do. One of the biggest culprits to fun, interactive Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay has been Eradicator Epidemic Virus. This card has actually died down over the last couple of weeks, but don't think your boy ain't forgot about you. Just because you ain't front and center clapping people's cheeks doesn't mean that you're a terribly designed card. Eradicator Epidemic Virus was first released when it was really hard to summon monsters to be able to fit its requirement. Nowadays, everybody has a dark monster with 2,500 or more attacking their deck. And the reason why Erad is so powerful is because declaring spells or traps can wipe up to half, if not most or all of your opponent's hand, which is crazy.
Oh, direkt hinten dran! Wie viele Zauber sind darin? Eine Buff, ein Planet, ein Prosperity, ein Es sind nur Zauberkarten fast!
We're not even going to talk about how you can see your opponent's hand, and then for the next 3 turns, you can see every card they draw. Yeah, this is a little ridiculous. If you're old enough in this Yu-Gi-Oh card game to remember, Crush Card Virus had a similar effect before its errata and was eventually banned. This is pretty much just that. And the fact that there's little to no counters to Eradicator Epidemic Virus is just the icing on the cake. Just like how there's another card that almost has no counters that players won't ban. My guy, Konami, can you please
stop making stupid cards?
Unfortunately enough, this card isn't as problematic as we once thought, but Archfiend King Calamity should have definitely never existed. Konami, why the hell would you make a monster that says your opponent can't play Yu-Gi-Oh? You can't even say,
well, you can only do it on your turn,
because you already made cards that allowed us to synchro summon on our opponent's turn. One could argue that Crimson Dragon is the real culprit in this situation since it can summon the Calamity monster, but to be honest with you, players were already doing it before, and this card literally reeks of I'm a busted card and need to be addressed. It's almost like there's another Calamity card on the Forbidden List that did similar things. Huh. Lastly, if I got to pick another banned card, it's gonna be easy. Dimension Shifter. Come on, guys. Come on. Dimension Shifter is like coleslaw. Either you hate it or you're a serial killer. There's no in between. I remember when Shifter came out, I said it was one of the most toxic cards in the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. And keep in mind, this is when Nibiru and Dark Ruler No More were really popping. Now come to find out that this is the only hittable card out of the 3. Nibiru and Dark Ruler No More are fair Yu-Gi-Oh cards when you compare them to a card that can literally end the game. We've seen it happen at Nationals on one of the biggest stages in North America.
He's only 1 win away from going to the World Championship. Brendan's going to do his absolute best. Oh!
No, not like
that. That was the fastest drop I've ever seen.
Not like this. Just drawing Dimension Shifter games 1 and 2 in the opening hand.
So please, tell me why Shifter needs to stay off the Forbidden List. Now moving on to Limited, this one is extremely hard because we have a fork in the road. Limited is actually the only part of the Forbidden List where you can bring a card off of the Forbidden List to be hugely impactful, or you can put one on, which is just as impactful. I'm telling you, woo, this one's hard. There's so many cards I want to hit, and there's so many cards I want to bring off. Boom, I got it. Thunder Dragon Colossus. Statistically, this is a card that everyone wants off the Forbidden List, and it does make sense. Both the OCG and Master Duel have this card, and it's doing literally nothing. And it's ridiculously hard to find a counter argument to Thunder Dragon Colossus being on the Forbidden List.
every single Yu-Gi-Oh deck will play it.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking for those every single Yu-Gi-Oh decks in the OCG and Master Duel that do it.
This card's way too powerful and it's a floodgate.
Well then, why isn't every single deck playing it?
It's really easy to play.
Refer back to the first answer. Now, fundamentally, you guys can say that the OCG and the TCG are two completely different card games, but when you combine that with Master Duel statistics, Thunder Dragon Colossus is a card that could come off the Forbidden List and could be huge for Thunder Dragon decks. And in theory, it also could be huge for other Yu-Gi-Oh strategies, but none of them have had a lasting impact on the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. And in order to tone down the Dragon Link or the Dragon strategy, a change is going to have to be made. A lot of players wanted the Bestial monsters addressed, and I think that's exactly what we're gonna do here. I think the Bestial Rebellion 1 hits that sweet spot for dragons. It does limit the deck's consistency and the abilities to be able to get into their Bestial monsters as well as their branded spell and trap cards. I genuinely considered Bestial Magnemite on this list, but I really needed it for this last card. The last card I'm going to bring to Limited is Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. If you ask me, there isn't a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh cards that need to go to Limited, though some of the statistics may disagree. My guy, there's still players that want shit all win to Limited. Why? The Perfect Forbidden List has always been in favor of bringing as many Yu-Gi-Oh decks to the competitive scene as possible, or at least a playable scene, and Heavy Metal Foes Electromite allows you to be able to bridge the gap between Pendulum decks and other strategies alike, especially since they've been nerfed to death with Kashtira. Speaking of such, your boy has not forgotten about Kashtira. You know what happened to Kashtira Rise Heart last time I talked about it. For the people that don't know, go ahead and check out the beginning of my meta tier list, and once you're done, hit pause, because when you're done with this video, that's the next video you should watch. In all honesty, I think if Don Leonardo didn't get to Kashtira, then the ban list will, and in this Perfect Forbidden list, I'll be addressing it. I didn't want to completely nerf Kashtira to the ground. I still wanted to be a respectable and playable deck. I thought that these hits were very fair to the deck, allowing it to still being able to compete, but also letting it slow its road, bucko. Its time in the meta spotlight is over. In order to address the Kashtira hype and satiate the thirst for the death of Kashtira, I think that Kashtira Fenrir Semi-Limited is a really good option here. Kashtira Fenrir ironically reminds me of Cyber Dragon back in 2005. Don't judge me, I know I'm old. It's a card that can be ridiculously dominant and even meta warping at points in times. Just be thankful that it's not a light monster, I guess. The semi-limit of Kashtira Fenrir still allows some of the other strategies to be able to splash it in case they need an extra body and spot removal, kind of like how Cyber Dragon was, and also still gives Kashtira the flexibility to have 2 copies to be able to search the Kashtira monsters that they want. Then there's actually the most powerful card in Kashtira's arsenal. I'm going to semi-limit Kashtira Birth. My boy, if they didn't tell you Kashtira Birth was busted, they was lying. Kashtira Birth gives a whole new meaning to busted continuous spell card. Think hitting Kashtira any further will completely cripple the deck. This still allows the deck to be playable, but not as dominant as it once was. My last hit for semi-limited just might make me a whole demon out there. I noticed that there's actually some really problematic cards in the game. Those and That's, Rival of the Warlord, Skill Drain. Every single one of these cards can be considered as a really powerful card that can shut down a particular deck. I noticed that there was a ton, and I mean a ton of people that wanted cards like that on the particular Forbidden List, but I actually figured out a decent solution. One of the biggest problems to these floodgates is actually being able to search them extremely well, and I think that this particular hit was actually the correct hit for Master Duel. Ironically, Pot of Prosperity is a card that should be considered stronger than Pot of Desires because of the ability to be able to search these floodgate-like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So I think a person can make a genuine case for this card to be limited on the Forbidden List, especially right before the Brokies get it. My guy, seriously, imagine as a budget player, you finally get this card that gets limited. Now moving on to Unlimited, these were some of the most reasonable requested cards. And again, if you have some cards that you think should be off of the Forbidden List or on the Forbidden List, go ahead and let me know down below. I think that these cards will actually be pretty healthy for the game. The first one is Solomon Great Gazelle. How do you make a booster set promoting an entire Yu-Gi-Oh strategy, but not bring a card that's been on the list for almost 3 years off that would help the strategy and not hurt the game? Next is Prank Kids Meow Meow Mew. Surprisingly, there are a ton of Prank Kids players that really miss this card, and for good reason. Prank Kids Meow Meow Mew was almost unfairly hit on the Forbidden List. It's mainly because this card can work really well for other decks like Adamantipator and of course itself. And in theory, if Thunder Dragon Colossus does come off the list, this is a strategy that can summon it to the side of the field. But in all honesty, when you really break it down, Prank Kids have been completely dead since the banning of Meow Meow Mew. This would actually be the necessary steps to be able to help make a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh deck that could compete inside of the meta. And again, this Perfect Forbidden List is built to be able to make as many decks as competitive as possible. And lastly, for the Unlimited, this is a card that everyone wants off of the Forbidden List. Trust me, when I tell you that this card should come off, everyone's saying the same thing. Miscellaneous Ceres was a card that was unrightfully limited. My God, I can't even live through that one. And that's all that I have for the perfect Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden List. My Shadow Gang, be sure to let me know down below how well this Forbidden List was. Would you play under this Forbidden List? We actually might even be making a tournament and hosting it on my Twitch. I can't wait to see you guys there. Of course, Big Dog, if you want to see more amazing content, you can go ahead and check out these videos, Big Dog, and I'll be sure to catch you on the next one.